Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Coaching the Bible. This is episode 226. Wow. Every time I say that number, I impress myself even more on some level. Season 5, episode 13, indecision number 13. Our subject of the week is leadership of the nation on collective and collaborative courage. Yep, say that 3 times fast. Excuse me. Hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great week. It's going to be an interesting week here ahead in Israel with the signing of the ceasefire agreement, and who knows what comes next. But we're hopeful. We're praying. We're really on edge, tense, nervous, anxious, just to see who comes home and in what condition they come home, and what it means as it plays out over the course of the next number of weeks. It's going to be agonizing. It's going to be difficult. I think on some level, at some points, it's going to be horrifyingly bad. We have to prepare ourselves for that, and I'm not sure we're prepared for that. I know I'm not prepared for that, so I imagine others aren't either. At the same time, this coming Monday evening, my oldest daughter is getting married, and so that is a massive family celebration here. And so it's this odd celebration / anxiety around all the hostage-related things that are going on at the same time, and they're overlapping and intertwining with each other, which makes it even more difficult. But super grateful for this moment and super appreciative of this opportunity, and super excited for her and for her future husband. It's even still hard for me to say that out loud. And just mazal tov, that's the term we use. Congratulations to her and to him, to my wife, to our family, to our extended family, to those who are going to be joining us and celebrating, to his family. And wow, that we have gotten and we have reached this place, we have reached this time in our lives. It's a new level. There's no other way to describe that. It's a different level. And excited for it. I'm excited for it. And that's coming this week. So on the heels and on the top of this hostage thing and the ceasefire, it's this unbelievable moment of excitement and celebration, our daughter's wedding. Okay. Collective and collaborative courage. What I want to speak about today, what I want to learn with you today, what I want to talk about today here together in Coaching the Bible, is the idea that while Moses is the scene and is in fact the central figure in the story of the Exodus, the foundation of Israel's liberation, the people of Israel's liberation, is actually laid by a network of courageous, compassionate, and strategic leaders. These are individuals who are often working in the shadows, who demonstrate what you might call the power of distributed leadership. And on some level, to me, they form a hidden curriculum of leadership for Moses that he has to learn and apply as he steps into this new role. So for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to assume that Moses knows all the stories of all the people that we're going to talk about today. They all, on some level, revolve around him. They happen to him partially. And I think it's important to assume that he knows these events. In the same way that when I study the book of Genesis, I assume that the younger generations know what happened to the older generations, that it's not hidden. And so that, Jacob knows what happened between Isaac and Ishmael, and the children of Jacob know what happened between Jacob and his brother, and know what's going on between Rachel and Leah, and know what's going on with the father Laban, and that the children of those children know what happened between Joseph and his brothers. Because I not just make that it makes the story richer, I think it's just more realistic that they're aware of these events and helps to inform maybe their actions and the future as they play forward. And so I'm assuming that to be the case for Moses as well, especially in light of the fact that even though he is saved by the daughter of Pharaoh, which we'll get to, he is raised by his own mother. And so I think he knows the plight of the people, and he knows their situation. Maybe he knows about the idea of a hero leader coming along to redeem them. and he knows a lot of those things. And so I think it's an important assumption, but it's an assumption I'm willing to make for the sake of what we're going to do. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look very quickly today at these other leaders, these other key decision makers in the story who helped to educate Moses about what it means to be the leader of these people. Their stories are told not simply for historical fact, but to educate and to teach you, the current modern day leader, and to teach then Moses, the future leader at the time. So the first and foremost, and for the sake of this, we're not going to talk about Moses' actions. We're not going to talk about Pharaoh. We're not going to talk about God. We're going to talk about everybody else. Again, these people who are operating below the radar on some level, who maybe are acting once or twice in the course of all of the pantheon of history and make an impact and teach something vis-a-vis leadership and decision making. So the first one is Shifra and Puah. So Shifra and Puah are the midwives who refused Pharaoh's decree to kill the Hebrew male infants, and they saved countless lives. And they're defying the greatest power of the day. And not only behind his back, but to his face. The risk is enormous. Disobeying Pharaoh effectively should lead to execution, like we've seen before. People who've sinned against the Pharaoh, don't survive very long. Remember the baker from a few weeks ago? There's risk beyond that to their loved ones, perhaps, to their families. And let's assume for a moment that Shifra and Puah are not known to us in terms of their identity. So Rashi, the famous commentary, mentions that it's possible that it's in fact Miriam and her mother Yocheved, Moses' sister and mother, who are also these people. Possible, why not? But other commentaries say, no, it's just two women playing this role. And to some degree, perhaps they're even Egyptians. So they're not even part of the people of Israel. And so they show Moses the beginnings of moral courage. And that moral courage stands above the decrees, even if it's at the greatest personal cost. That's a massive first lesson. Because it's very easy to follow the rules of Pharaoh. It's a command. The commander commanded, and I am the commanded, and so I'm going to do what the commander says. And they say, no, that's not true. The underlying principle here from Moses is that moral courage is acting against injustice, even when the risks are high, but it's not simply being defiant in your own mind, in your own words. It's actually defiant in action. And so it's very important to appreciate that not just that Shifra and Puah were maybe appalled by the decree, but they acted upon their disgust of what it was that Pharaoh had commanded, and they told him so. So that's one. Number two is Pharaoh's daughter. This is leadership through compassion. This one is enormously powerful and instructive in many, many ways. And if you have the opportunity perhaps to listen to Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, who I listen to on a regular basis in terms of his lectures and his talks, goes quite deep on the story of Pharaoh's daughter. And I think it's very interesting and very imaginative, but also very educational in terms of the lessons that it teaches us with respect to this person and what she risks. She rescues Moses from the water, but she goes a step further. She adopts Moses as her son, and by doing so defies her father's, call them what they are, genocidal policies, and ensuring ultimately the survival of Israel's future leader. This is not simply just a random person doing this. In and of itself would be courageous, like Shifra and Puah. This is the daughter of the king of Egypt. She lives in his house. She's the heir apparent. She's raising an Israelite Jewish child in the home of Pharaoh. Draw the modern parallel if you'd like. in defiance of her father, in defiance of his decree, showing him up in front of everybody. So the risks and the decision to do this, she does not have to do this. By no means does she have to do this, but she does. So she risks her personal position, her role in the household, her life. She puts massive tension in the home because now she's adopting a Hebrew child, potentially isolating the child, isolating herself socially, separating herself out from everybody else. And what she says is ultimately, Moses, you have to learn this really important lesson about compassionate leadership and on some level, quiet, although bold, but in public, but quiet resistance. If you want to foster trust and loyalty in the future, then compassion is a key component. And compassionate leadership, what she shows here, is number 2. So first we have Shifra and Puah. Number 2, we have Pharaoh's daughter, who I mentioned parenthetically is anonymous in the Bible here. She is only known as the daughter of Pharaoh. That's intentional. Giving her own specific, unique identity muddles the waters around what she did. Number 3 is Miriam, Moses' sister, who amplifies and exemplifies strategic initiative and decisive action. So she suggests to Pharaoh's daughter that perhaps a Hebrew nursemaid, i.e. her mother, should care for Moses, which ultimately preserves his safety, keeps him connected to his heritage, keeps him alive. It's a bold, bold move. She's not old. She's a young person. We know the math. Miriam is but a few years older than Moses. And so as a young person, she approaches the daughter of Pharaoh at the side of the river where I don't think anyone is supposed to go unless they're supposed to be there, and makes this bold suggestion that amazingly the daughter of Pharaoh actually agrees to. The risk to her is clear, and the decision making is, again, a step beyond, let's say. There's no reason that this should actually work. There's no reason to think that this is even a good idea. There's certainly every reason to think that there's massive personal risk here by stepping out as a young person of Israel into the face and space of the daughter, princess of Egypt. You don't do that. She could have also risked Moses in this moment, because maybe the moment of compassion that the daughter of Pharaoh had showed could be lost in the moment. But she shows Moses that an effective leader has to seize opportunities and has to act decisively, which we do see shortly later in the book. He does in fact do that. When he sees the two people fighting, when he sees the Egyptian beating the Israelite man. And you have to then align the short-term action with the long-term goal, because Miriam is not acting just for the moment. The lore around her and the midrashic material around Miriam is just she has this prophetic idea that this child is going to be the leader of the Jewish people. And so you have to align those two things together. The short-term action of saving the child, putting him into the right hands for the long-term goal of being able to be the person who's going to be the leader of the people of Israel. This is strategic thinking at its best, and it comes from a young child. Number 4, so we have now Shifra Puah, the daughter of Pharaoh. Number 4 is Tzipporah, or as she's called in the movie, the Ten Commandments, Zephra, is decisive action in a moment of crisis. She circumcises their son when it appears that God is seeking to kill Moses. It's an odd story, but in so doing, taking a decisive action in a moment of crisis, she is ensuring and fulfilling the covenant and ensuring Moses' success in the mission, or Moses' opportunity in the mission. Now, the risk here is that it's simply culturally out of order, because as a Midianite woman, she may not have anything to do with circumcision as a rite. Yes, she's joined the people of Israel, but still, she's far into it. Yet she boldly takes the knife and she acts. And she shows Moses, hey, there are moments that are decisive and there are moments of crisis. And even if it's unconventional or uncomfortable or outside the box or outside your space of comfort, you have to act. And you can't sit and wait. You can't stew and think. You must act decisively in those moments. That's how you lead. It's a dynamic, quickly evolving situation and not for the better. And so Tzipporah acts. So that's 4. So again, we have Shifra and Puah. We have the daughter of Paro. We have Miriam. We have Tzipporah. And now the last one is simply the collective people of Israel and their resilience through their shared nightmare story. Preserving traditions, holding on to their identity, resisting cultural assimilation, maintaining their hope constantly for liberation. Under the space of oppression, punishment, slavery, death, they hold on to it. Perhaps it would have been easier to give up. But by holding on to it, it leads to perhaps further reprisals and further punishment and further suffering. And in fact, it does. Because we know that when Moses shows up, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. It could also fragment and destroy the collective bond of the community where people simply say, we can't do this anymore. And so that collective resilience where one person attaches to another and they go arm in arm together in their space of resilience is the interlocking chains of the movement that sets in motion the liberation of the people. Now, yes, he may wonder why they've been in slavery so long and why they've been in this situation for so long. And he may perhaps even consider that they don't deserve it to be liberated. But they do. And he has to learn that from them. And when he learns that from them and then he hears it from God, then he can be their leader. And so the people collectively sharing identity, sharing values, fostering that sense of cohesion, that sense of resilience, that sense of collective action, that sense of strength, that's everything. And so you have this incredible dynamic here. You have 4 sets of women, and then the people themselves who play this role for Moses in teaching him this idea, what I'm going to call collective courage or collaborative courage, or both. Collective and collaborative courage. This is a unifying leadership model. It's the idea that diverse contributors, through their courage, through their compassion, through their collaboration, can shape transformative change. And they also demonstrate that leadership is shared, leadership is resilient, and leadership has to be morally grounded. And Moses is not and cannot and will not be by himself. He will have partners. He will be able to delegate, initially to Aaron, and then later on to the tribes and the tribal leaders, to Joshua as well, to the priests, to the elders. Courage and compassion go together. And then it's now about leading through balancing moral conviction, strategic action, and collective unity. This is Moses. Moses gets this from the people. He is reflective on some level of the things that the people around him are showing him in all those moments. And us as the leaders in our specific spaces have to begin to elicit and appreciate the leadership skills, the leadership talents, the leadership character that the people around us demonstrate. Maybe it's a level of relentlessness. A person continues to go, never stop. Maybe it's a level of, how should I say, doing the thing they need to do even though they don't want to do the thing. Because things have to get done. And so there's that sense of perseverance, of diligence, of discipline. Or it's a leader who's showing compassion, or it's a leader who's showing moral courage, or it's a leader who's showing a value and an ethical set that is paradigmatic, something something to I lost my English here for a second, to follow, to inculcate into your own leadership structure. That's where Moses comes into this picture. He's not alone. He never was, and he never really will be, except obviously in certain moments he's going to be by himself. But in the spectrum of the leadership of the people out of Egypt, it's not necessarily something he does on his own. It is collective and collaborative courage. And to end with a quote, as always, it's a quote from Phil Jackson. It's a quote that I believe we have used before, but I love it so much we're going to use it again. Phil Jackson, the famous basketball player and then more famously basketball coach. The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. That is Coaching the Bible for this week. Mazal Tov, congratulations to my daughter, to my wife, to our extended family. Looking forward to certainly an eventful and a celebratory week on one level, and on another level, an incredibly difficult week that is going to be ahead of us as a nation. Take care.